The radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 94, recorded on Friday, June 23rd from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we dive into Wisconsin's Democratic and Republican state conventions and discuss how exactly the parties are not the same. I'm so sick of people saying that they're the same thing. We're going to show it today, again. But first, the headlines.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
First off,
You're going to make me talk about
I know, neither one of us really wants to talk about this, but it is the biggest news story of the week.
It shouldn't be the biggest news story of the week.
We'll mention it.
Oh.
But the OceanGate Titan story, the submersible with the billionaires that imploded, going down to visit the Titanic on a tourist trip, a $250,000 tourist trip. We're a political show, so we don't really talk about everything that's in the news, but as far as this pertains to politics, I will say, one, I really don't care that those people died. They are a bunch of rich people who died because they couldn't spend their money fast enough. They had to take a really risky trip with an unproven company, with unproven technology that many people have warned was not safe. All the experts in the field, and they died. And I guess that's fine. He found a way to make them buy the guillotine, and I, for one, applaud him and think that we should have more trips to see the wreckage of the OceanGate Titan with more unproven technology by tech bro innovators who don't care about regulation and safety. And we'll just create a perpetual motion machine of sending these things down and feeding Cthulhu.
Feeding Davy Jones. Look, okay, here's my whole thing with this. I'm not one to really, we talked about Pat Robertson dying, right? And
it was great, yeah.
We were happy he died.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that that's the same situation here with these people. I'm not going to say I feel any really big remorse or horror, oh my God, horrible things are happening.
You would still go to a Blink-182 concert if one of these people was your stepfather, is what you're saying.
Yes.
It's what he would have wanted.
Yes. But here's my thing. I do feel bad for the people that died just for the sake of a human ethic of, yeah, death and suffering suck. This was preventable. This is really bad. There is at least one person for sure I am absolutely happy is dead from that trip. And that was the pilot and CEO of this company. Because it was his negligence, his absolute stupidity that cost these people their lives. We can talk about class warfare all day long. We can talk about, whether or not eat the rich, all that fun stuff. Cool, whatever. But at the end of the day, like you said, it was some tech innovator bro who thought that he could skirt by the rules and that the rules didn't apply to him. And because he just made crap up on the fly, people died. Right. And I'm glad he's one of them.
Stockton Rush, I believe was his name.
Of course it was.
Appropriate name.
Yeah.
And this company fired one of their previous safety engineers and then sued him for breach of contract after he reported safety concerns to OSHA. And he specifically cited that a sub made out of titanium and carbon fiber, as this was not rated to go to the depths that they were going to.
No, not at all.
And basically said that exactly what happened was going to happen, that they should not have people in this sub before it was tested and certified. And I actually have some quotes from Stockton Rush showing just how much he cared about all those safety concerns. The commercial sub industry is obscenely safe because they have all these regulations, but it also hasn't innovated or grown because they have all these safety regulations.
Oh, damn. These super in the way safety regulations, man. It's a bunch of bureaucratic red tape, if you ask me. What do they even do anyway?
Their sub isn't innovating or growing. It's probably about the size of a softball right now, so not so great. The other quote from him, there's a limit. At some point, safety is just pure waste. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed. Don't get in your car. Don't do anything. At some point, you're going to take some risk, and it really is a risk-reward question. I think I can do this just as safely by breaking the rules. And then he went on to specifically say he was breaking the rules of not using titanium and carbon fiber for a submersible hull. And this is what you get. This is what happens.
Yeah, how is that risk playing out for you, man?
Yeah, this is the libertarian dream.
Yep.
Forget those government regulations, those bureaucrats, they don't know.
Who is John Galt at the end of the day? John Galt's apparently at the bottom of the ocean. Again, I'm just going to reiterate one more time. It really does suck that people had to die for people to realize that regulations
they won't realize
matter.
anything. This is not going to all of a sudden have a clamoring for regulation among the right wing.
No, you're right. You're correct.
They're going to, and they already have. They've already blamed it on diversity.
I saw that. Did you? Whereas all of the news outlets were all kind of just talking about what was going on, what was happening with the CEO, how they scurry regulation, what was going on with the update of the rescue at the time, and then Fox News, CEO once said we don't want a bunch of old white men.
Right, because he didn't want to pay people that actually had expertise in the field, and also they didn't want to work for him because they said it was unsafe. That's the reason. It wasn't because this guy loved diversity and wanted to create a woke submersible company. It was every person that actually had experience in the field told him he was crazy and that he was going to kill people. So he ended up hiring a bunch of young people just looking for a start who didn't understand all of the complexities and the risk of what they were doing. So that's what happens.
Did you see that they apparently reposted the job?
No. I'm looking for a new CEO because they do need one.
No, I don't even know if this is even true. I'm going to be 100% honest. I just saw it on social media.
So I will say I'm glad that they died instantly, and it sounds like, according to the Navy, it happened on Sunday right after they lost contact with the service ship, and that they weren't sitting at the bottom of the ocean waiting for their imminent deaths for days. That's something I can get behind, but I am not sad that they are gone. So let's move on to some news that we want to talk about.
I don't know if I want to talk about this either.
Talk about the city of Greenfield.
Super local.
In Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It's a suburb of Milwaukee, very close to where we both live.
Yeah.
They've canceled their Pride event, which was supposed to be this Sunday at a farmer's market. And it was literally just going to be some games and a photo opportunity.
Yeah, it wasn't anything.
Right. It wasn't like a parade.
It's Greenfield after all.
Yeah, it was just going to be the health department organizing some games and a picture. And then all of a sudden, all mention of it was gone from I think it was like a Facebook post on the farmer's market site. It was just gone. No one said anything. There was no explanation. It just wasn't there.
Nope.
And they reached out to the health department asking about it, who then directed the reporters, this was TMJ4, local NBC affiliate, directed them to the mayor, Mike Nitsky, I believe is his name, longtime mayor, the longest serving mayor in Greenfield history, I believe.
Not surprised.
Who, answering the reporter by text, said things like pride and rainbows have taken on deep, divisive political overtones. Sometimes that turns to physical altercations. And he referenced an attack last week on the city's first openly gay LGBTQ supervisor, Peter Bergalis. And Nitschke also said that the market shouldn't be a place where people are confronted by those who have strong political beliefs. A politics-free market doesn't solve the anger and divisiveness out there, but being free of it does give us all 4 hours to just enjoy it.
This gives me real Target vibes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where
for everyone's safety, we'll just remove all of the mentions of pride and all of the celebration of our gay community. We'll just get rid of it. That'll solve the problem.
Because literal terrorists will come and challenge people to a fight.
So let's just give them their way.
Right. This is what mob rule literally looks like.
Mm-hmm. And this is what cowardice in public office looks
like.
Well,
and I added these other notes as well. I mean, so I don't know if you saw what happened in Hamtramck, Michigan, where they've officially banned all pride flags.
All flags, supposedly.
Well, right.
But then there was also the Juneteenth event where they had Pan-African flags.
Right.
And yeah, so I did see that.
But they had the same exact reasoning where it's like, well, this is too politically divisive. This is too controversial.
And obviously the majority Muslim city in Michigan certainly would have religious connotations.
Correct. But you also see this in schools. I mean, we've seen multiple accounts, especially here in Wisconsin, like with Waukesha, where schools are now saying that the pride flags are way too politically divisive themselves, so they're not allowing pride flags either. I am absolutely sick of people kowtowing
Freedom, Joe.
right to right-wing extremists because they're literally threatening physical violence to a marginalized group of people. And our answer is, well, to make both sides happy, the marginalized group needs to stay in the frickin' closet.
To keep our children safe.
It's absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely disturbing that we have people who are just perfectly okay with this. And even Peter Bergelis, who did get attacked because of a hate crime, he even called us out saying, this is unacceptable. As an LGBTQ county supervisor, you should be having this.
Right. It's a very small show of support. In really, Greenfield's not that small. It's like the third largest suburb of Milwaukee, like 20th largest city in Wisconsin, something along those lines. And the very minimum that they were going to do, which was almost nothing, now not even going to happen. I believe there are still going to be people showing up. It's on Sunday. I don't remember the hours I'm working this weekend, so I'm not going to be able to be there. But there is still going to be...
Unofficially.
Right. They're going to have a lot of people coming out there. By the time you hear this, it's going to be over anyway. But hopefully there is a large gathering of people supporting the LGBT community in Greenfield.
I agree.
Now, let's go for an update on last week's main topic.
We talked about the Biden bribery tapes, the Biden corruption, the crime family.
Surprisingly, we were not shut down. We're still free.
I can't believe it.
To you.
I cannot believe it. The mainstream media allowed us to stay. Well, Hunter Biden has officially agreed to a plea deal for a tax fraud and a gun charge.
Which is what we talked about last week in the prosecutor out of Delaware that was specifically set up to look into Hunter Biden.
Yes.
And remember, the Republican Party is the one saying that the Justice Department is being weaponized against conservatives and literally set up a committee in the House to investigate the weaponization of the Justice Department against conservatives.
Yep.
Weaponize the Justice Department against a single American citizen because his dad happened to be running for president.
Yep. Do you want to tell us what happened?
So this was, again, the prosecutor that was assigned specifically by Attorney General William Barr to investigate all of the crazy conspiracies and everything out of Ukraine and all of that, looking into every aspect of Hunter Biden's life. To try to bring up charges against him. And unfortunately, none of the conspiracy theory stuff had any evidence whatsoever, other than the form that we talked about last week, the single person claiming that they heard that someone has these tapes.
I'm still hearing people talk about that. It's like it's a real thing, by the way.
Right. Well, they will never stop now.
No.
That this is going to be the topic forever, and it doesn't matter. They'll just say that it was all covered up by the deep state. But instead, they got failure to pay taxes in 2 years and lying on a form to buy a firearm, because that's the gun control in this city. It's literally just, you have to be 18 to visit this site. Please click here to say that you're 18. Like, that is the extent of our gun control. It was a form that he filled out that said, are you currently addicted to drugs or have substance abuse problems? And he said no. And I think it was like for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
And he lied. Yay.
Corruption at its finest.
Yes. Joe Biden must resign immediately as president.
Well, okay. To kowtow to the Republicans who are spouting this crazy crap here. Yeah, it's still bad.
We should actually go after people that cheat on their taxes.
Yeah, it was like over 100,000 a year or something like that.
And that's why we need more IRS funding.
Yes.
and instead, Republicans are attacking that funding.
And trying to absolutely defund and dismantle the IRS.
Right. And then also, yes, we need more gun control, and we need stricter gun control.
I was like, yeah, just better gun control.
And stricter sentences when people are found in violation of that. So does that mean that's what Republicans are going to support from now on?
No. That's too crazy. I don't know what you're talking about.
So basically, the plea deal will avoid jail time. The gun charges basically...
Two-tier justice system. Why can't we have a fair justice system?
Right.
My goodness.
And this plea deal is consistent with all previous cases.
I don't believe you. This was a special corruption case handed down by President Biden himself,
right,
even though he had nothing to do with this at all.
And
I don't care what you say.
The Trump-appointed federal judge stay on to run this case specifically to not have any appearance of interfering because it involved his son.
But see, what you don't understand,
But it
Jason,
didn't matter, right? They're
what you
still
don't
saying
understand is that this guy was also part of the deep state.
Oh, right.
He was also a secret Biden hire because let's be real, Jason. Let's just think about it for humor me for a second, right?
Oh, I've been humoring you.
Biden would have had to have hired this guy back on to keep him on, right? So he chose to keep on for a reason. He knew that he could manipulate him.
It's in his pocket.
Yeah.
Sure. So there you go. That's what's going to be on Fox News
For the next 3 years.
That it's all a scam because Hunter Biden will just have to pay back his taxes, and apparently his girlfriend threw out the gun very quickly.
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks after or something like that.
Right. So he didn't even have the gun anymore. The gun was never used to commit violence or crime, which is why they're basically dropping that charge. And yeah, he'll get a slap on the wrist for the tax evasion, which unfortunately is consistent with the way we handle tax evasion in this country. Most of the time, they don't even do anything about it, let alone charge someone with a crime.
Well, that's my favorite part about the whole thing is when Republicans are screaming, two-tier justice system, two-tier justice system. Yeah, man.
Yeah, Hunter
You
Biden
created it.
Yeah, Hunter Biden's wealthy, and his family is wealthy. He is benefiting from a two-tier justice system.
That Republicans push every single time.
It's why the entire Trump family is still free, even though
not in jail.
they were running a corrupt, fraudulent charity.
Yep.
And stole money from veterans. And they're not in jail, but their accountant is. That's the two-tier justice system.
Exactly.
Now, some good news.
I like some good news.
The first in the nation gender-affirming care ban in Arkansas was struck down this week.
I can't believe it. No, like seriously, I can't believe it. I don't believe you.
We don't have any information on how the real woman in politics,
Real women in politics.
Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, is taking this news.
She can't order a cheese plate.
But a federal judge has permanently blocked the law banning gender-affirming care for minors. This is an actual ruling. It's not a temporary injunction, which is usually what you see. This is a ruling by Obama-appointed, of course, U.S. District Judge James Moody Jr. on Tuesday, who said the state of Arkansas violated several sections of the U.S. Constitution when it banned all gender-affirming treatments for people under the age of 18. The 80-page ruling says depriving trans minors of treatments like hormone therapy would cause them irreparable harm, and that delaying care until adulthood would force teens to go through changes inconsistent with their gender identity.
Yeah, that's all true.
You can only use puberty blockers before you go through puberty. The American Civil Liberties Union brought the suit on behalf of families of transgender teens and 2 physicians. Judge Moody had previously ordered an injunction to block the law days before it was set to take effect in 2021. And we have a quote from Judge Moody: "Rather than protecting children or safeguarding medical ethics, the evidence showed that the prohibited medical care improves the mental health and well-being of patients, and that by prohibiting it, the state undermined the interest it claims to be advocating. The testimony of well-credentialed experts, doctors who provide gender-affirming medical care in Arkansas, and families that rely on that care directly refutes any claim by the state that the act advances an interest in protecting children."
You get him, Moody.
It's well said. They're doing the exact opposite of what they claim to be doing, and it's all politically and religiously motivated.
Which it always has been.
And obviously this is going to be appealed, so it's not over, but it is still good news. And hopefully, if this ruling stands, which it's going to probably eventually go to the Supreme Court, unfortunately, if it does stand, though, somehow, it would basically mean that most of the bills across the country that are being advanced, including here in Wisconsin, which we will get to in the main topic, would also be unconstitutional.
Yep. Speaking of the Supreme Court,
And unconstitutional.
let's talk about Justice Samuel Alito.
And this is a continuation on the corruption and undue influence within the Supreme Court that has been going on. We've had multiple headlines over the past couple months, and this is just even more. And this is from ProPublica, who published this story at the beginning of this week.
Who is just killing it, by the way.
Yes.
They are doing great work.
Support ProPublica. It outlines the story between Samuel Alito and Paul Singer, a hedge fund billionaire who has had at least 10 cases involving his business heard before the Supreme Court, who flew Justice Alito to Alaska on his private jet for a luxury fishing trip.
Hooray.
Alito did not report the 2008 fishing trip on his annual financial disclosures.
Hooray.
By failing to disclose the private jet flight Singer provided, and it was valued at $100,000 each way
Jesus
for a private charter flight.
Could you imagine, Jason, having one flight equaling like a really good house that you could have?
Well, these days it's probably not a really good house, but at least a livable situation. Yeah, that's got to be nice, huh? $1 million private jet.
Oh my God.
But by failing to disclose that flight, Alito appears to have violated a federal law that requires justices to disclose most gifts, according to ethics law experts. Will anything
So
happen?
we got him. He's gone. He's
Yeah,
going to
sure.
jail.
The only problem is who interprets the laws? Damn it. And according to Alito, the flying on the plane was a facility, and any use of facilities is not required to be disclosed. So
What?
He considered the plane to be a facility because he didn't respond to ProPublica's request for comment in the story. Instead, before the story came out, Alito published a response, a pre-response, in the Wall Street Journal, basically stating that everything was above board. He barely even knew the guy. Because, that's what you do. You always accept
Yeah, you never knew him.
flights on private. And
Yeah.
before he ruled in favor of this guy's company, giving him a $2.6 billion judgment in his favor, he didn't even know that it had anything to do with that guy. He didn't even know it was his business. So it's totally fine.
Of course.
And he said that the seat would have otherwise been vacant. What do you want me to do?
Just leave a vacancy.
Right. You had this
On this private jet?
I mean, it would have been anybody off the street.
I thought you were environmentalists.
And he defended his failure to report the trip, writing that justices commonly interpreted the disclosure requirements to not include accommodations and transportation for social events, which
What?
transportation is 100% supposed to be reported.
And why would it not be?
This is absolutely ridiculous. This is a Supreme Court justice stating this stuff, which is like the most ridiculous interpretation of the law.
But this is exactly what...
In his own favor.
Yeah, but this is exactly what Clarence Thomas was doing.
Yes, this is... Clarence Thomas, I would argue, is maybe even worse because it has to, paying tuition for people and flying back and forth across the country and staying at their jets. This is at least just one trip, but it's still... And same thing with Clarence Thomas. This trip between Samuel Alito and Paul Singer's hedge fund billionaire, who has all these cases before the Supreme Court, was all organized by... It always comes back to this guy, Leonard Leo, the longtime leader of the Conservative Federalist Society, who attended and helped organize the Alaska fishing vacation. Singer and the lodge owner were both major donors to Leo's political groups.
Oh, fantastic.
And also, Leonard Leo was the beneficiary of a more than $1 billion
Yep.
company from a right-wing billionaire who left him his entire company tax-free somehow because of the tax laws in our country.
Yikes.
Yes. And in 2000...
Two-tier justice system. Two-tier justice system.
And in 2005, Paul Singer also flew Justice Antonin Scalia, who thankfully died in 2016, on a private jet to Alaska and paid the bill for his stay.
Well, he didn't die on the private jet.
No,
Just
he
to
died
clarify.
he died in 2016.
Yeah.
This was in 2005.
Yeah.
It would have been fun had he died on the plane.
Would you still have to disclose it if you then die on the gift?
No,
If you don't-
that's the exception. Like, if you're going to die, like the next time this happens with Alito, if he's going to have the generosity to die on the way to the bribe given to him by the billionaire, that's fine. He doesn't have to report it then. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt then. And it would encourage it, in fact. But yes, this seems like Leonard Leo is basically organizing a matchmaking service for billionaires and Supreme Court justices.
Seems like it.
So he's basically a pimp to whore out the Supreme Court justices.
As a wise man used to say, this would be a smocking gun.
But nothing's going to happen because the people that make the rules are the same people benefiting from this corruption. And John Roberts is a coward.
Yep.
Who won't do anything to rein in his court. And instead, Republicans are just saying this is just an attack by liberals looking to delegitimize the court. No, this is the court delegitimizing itself by taking bribes from billionaires.
Well said. And finally, in a story so effed up, it's going to make you do a double take somehow. Don't do it while you're driving because you may get into a car accident. I'm just going to read this headline.
Don't do it while you're piloting a submersible to the Titanic because bad things could happen.
A restaurant now has to pay $140,000 after allegedly hiring a fake priest to extract confessions of workers' sins. And whatever you think that headline is, it's crazier. Taqueria Garibaldi, a restaurant in Sacramento, California, was already under investigation for withholding tips and failing to pay proper overtime wages for their employees.
No, standard restaurant.
Standard restaurant corruption, right? The owners were already being accused of threatening workers that they would have adverse immigration consequences if they participated in the investigation. And if that wasn't enough, the owners then solicited services from a, quote, priest for employees to privately confess transgressions during these difficult times. However, this supposed priest was actually brought in to interrogate workers in an attempt to get dirt for blackmail later on if people tried to participate. One of the employees in the LA Times and you just have to read this article. It's just so insane. One of the employees said, quote, he asked if I ever got pulled over for speeding, if I drank alcohol, or if I had stolen anything. The priest mostly had work-related questions, which I thought was strange. The priest asked if I had stolen anything at work, if I was late to my employment, if I did anything to harm my employer, and if I had any intention towards my employment. I can't. Jason, I can't. Fortunately for the Diocese of Sacramento, they are saying that this fake priest did not work for them, so at least it's not as bad as a real priest.
As it turns out, they knew that it wasn't a real priest because there were children in the restaurant and none of them were molested.
So a court ruled that the owners must pay the employees $140,000 in both back pay and damages because of what they did, as well as $5,000 for civil money penalties due to the, quote, willful nature of their violations.
They have to shut down after this.
Oh
right?
my God. I mean, who knows?
Who's gonna go there?
What is happening? And then I saw like the Department of Labor or something like that, I can't remember who it was, put out a press release and they said like this was the most explicit example of the most corrupt business they've ever seen.
People just don't want to work anymore.
Oh my goodness.
The millennials, they're just in their parents' basement. Those 20-year-old millennials.
Oh my goodness. What chaos. What is the world we live in?
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, they've won.
Boy, ain't right.
For Foxed in the Head this week, we have some reactions to the recent Juneteenth holiday.
Oh, great. I'm excited for this.
First, we'll start with Josh Hawley.
No, Mr. Manhood.
Republican from Missouri.
Well-known jogger when running and fleeing from domestic terrorism.
He tweeted, "Today is a good day to remember. Christianity is the faith.
Shut up.
And America is the place slavery came to die."
Oh my God.
Let's see if that's true. I got a couple quotes out of the Bible here from Ephesians 6:5. "Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ." Clearly anti-slavery, that Bible. And I got even another one from Leviticus 25:44. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves.
Super anti-slave.
I mean, it sounds more like instructions on how to buy slaves, but yeah, sure. Christianity is uniquely positioned to end slavery.
You didn't include the instructions about how to properly beat your slave.
Yeah, I didn't go with the, if you beat them as long as they don't die, that's fine, and how to mark them, and how long you can be a slave, and that it's fine if you make slaves as long as they don't convert. But once they convert, then there's like a certain amount of time that you can have them as. We didn't get into all the stereo instructions. I just wanted to stick to the highlights.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so the Christianity part, meh. But what about America as the place slavery came to die? Well, he may want to go back to school for history, because as it turned out, and this is a partial list, again, I didn't want to come up with all of the different countries, but a partial list of countries that outlawed slavery before the United States: Spain, Sweden, the Netherlands, Great Britain, Uruguay, Mexico, Bolivia, Greece, France, Serbia, Paraguay, Moldavia, Tunisia, Ecuador, Hawaii, before they were taken over by American businessmen, Venezuela, Argentina, all abolished slavery before the United States.
If Tunisia can get their shit together before the United States does, we should not be proud. I'm sorry.
Well, and America had the worst version of slavery known. The most aggressive form of slavery that you could never get out of, despite the instructions that were in the Bible telling you this is what would happen, like, for you to get out of slavery. Just completely ignored that. It's based on race, and even your children immediately become slaves.
Yep.
The worst form of slavery.
And slave owners then also use the Bible to justify their slavery.
Mm-hmm. And I will say there were people trying to use the Bible to justify the abolition of slavery as well. They had a harder row to hoe.
Oh no, this was one of my favorite things. If you ever get a chance, go read White Too Long. I can't remember the guy's name. It's from a Protestant preacher, and he just looks back about how racist Christianity has always been, and especially in American Protestantism. And he goes into very explicit detail about how the abolitionists who tried to use the Bible to argue for abolition and the freedom of slaves got their butts handed to them in arguments and debates by pro-slave Christians, because the Bible is pro-slavery.
As we just read. So Josh Hawley never met a holiday that he wouldn't use to push lies.
Cool. So what about Tiny Face?
Charlie Kirk, head of Turning Point USA and giant douchebag.
With a little face.
Like, if his face was a bowl and his eyes, nose, and mouth all slid to the middle of the bowl, that's basically Charlie Kirk's face. We have some quotes from him on a recent video that he put up.
Keep in mind, like, this guy also has talked about, I think we've even had him on this segment for his comments on Juneteenth before.
Yeah, and we didn't have this segment last year, but he has a school for children in Arizona. Remember that when we talked about school choice. This man creates curriculum to teach children in Arizona. Some of you will be listening to this episode as it airs on Juneteenth. What the heck is Juneteenth?
You shouldn't... Charlie, people have explained it to you already, man.
It depends who you ask.
No,
it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Actually. But let's talk about what it actually is. And we oppose Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday as it happened.
That's true.
And yes, it is the day that is mandatory to work at Turning Point USA. What a great boss Charlie Kirk is. The issue...
wait, we're doing a spite reverse holiday.
Right. Everyone has to work on a federal holiday.
Oh my, because I'm
racist.
People. Yeah. Oh my God.
The issue is that the entire point of it, as per postmodernists and deconstructionists...
You know, those super woke slaves that eventually were freed.
...is to subvert July 4th. That has always been the agenda. That there's a Black Independence Day and a National Independence Day.
Oh my God.
You know why that is, though, right, Charlie?
No, I don't. I don't know if he actually does know or not. I truly don't.
It's really hard to support an Independence Day when you would have actually been property when it was established. That would be kind of difficult if we're being honest. And that you might want your own Independence Day that is for you when you would have been free versus the people that bought you and sold you and kept you in bondage and whipped you. What they consider their Independence Day might be a little bit different than yours.
And again, can we just talk about something else as well? So let's say what he said was true. This was a secret coup to subvert July 4th, right?
To overthrow July 4th.
Dude, holidays are arbitrary, man. They don't mean anything other than what we give meaning to. That's all it is. There's nothing more to it. If we happened, it was like, okay, let's be real here. Back way long ago, people were not patriotic and they were not going crazy like we do today around July 4th. And it's okay to do that. Like we can have our 4th of July celebrations. It's fun to do the fireworks. It's fun to do the parades, whatever. I don't mind. If we just stopped naturally having that and we just stopped caring, yeah, why not? I'm not really that big of a fan of 4th of July anymore. Who cares? It's all made up anyway. So the fact that you're like so hell-bent on someone subverting your made-up holiday shows so much about you, Charlie.
But he goes on. At some point, you got to wonder, and the answer to the question is actually very simple. Why do these people need so much celebration?
No!
Why do these people need so many rituals?
What?
And the answer is super simple. It's because they're not religious.
Black people are not religious, Charlie?
Yeah, that's not... again, Charlie Kirk, he doesn't understand things? Not much of a surprise.
Dude, you're being racist and still getting it all wrong somehow. I don't even understand how you're failing at being a racist.
You need somebody to update your stereotype.
Oh my God.
Well, they're religious in their own way.
What?
Their version of religion is different than ours, not the white Christianity that I support. But those of us that go to church, we're part of something. The KKK. So if you completely secularize your society, like, I need to be involved in something, so you just start to create this pagan garbage.
Pagan?
Everyone knows
$1 million, Jason. $1 million freaking dollars. He has no idea what pagan is.
Everyone knows on Juneteenth we worship Baphomet.
Oh my God. Do not, as the pagans do, and celebrate Juneteenth.
And if you honestly don't know what Juneteenth is, if you happen to be listening to this, we have an entire episode from,
watch it.
I think 2 years ago.
Yeah, listen to it. It's really good.
That will explain it all for you.
Or, listen to actual black scholars who know way more than we do as well. Like, that's also perfectly fine.
Well, that's where we got our information from anyway. And then he sent out a tweet as well.
Oh, man.
It said, if Juneteenth was really about emancipation, why not September 22nd, 1862, when Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation? And again, I think if you just understood what Juneteenth was, that would answer that question.
We gotta send Charlie our episode.
Or what about January 1st, 1863, when the proclamation took effect? Yes. I wonder, Joe, why don't they celebrate their holiday on January 1st?
God, if they did that, Charlie Kirk would scream out, they're trying to take over the new year! Oh, it's another year we're somehow blacker! Oh my God, the postmodern Marxists are taking over everything!
Well, then this next recommendation you might see a problem too. December 18th. 1865, with the ratification of the 13th Amendment. If they tried to make the holiday of Black emancipation December 18th, Charlie Kirk would burst into flames.
Oh, Charlie.
And why don't they make it any of these other days? Again, just understand what Juneteenth is, but whatever. Because it's not about emancipation, which was one of America's great moral achievements. That took almost 100 years. It's about creating a summertime race-based competitor 2 weeks before July 4th. Which should be the most unifying civic holiday on the calendar.
Can we also talk about... And you're absolutely correct. If Charlie has it best right now. It is 2 weeks separated from July 4th. I don't see any encroachment into the 4th of July from Juneteenth. Do you?
No. I will still celebrate both. And in fact, if they want to create like 20 or 30 more summertime holidays, I'm fine with that too.
So anyway, you are absolutely correct. If Charlie's freaking the hell out over 2 weeks, imagine what would have happened if he had
December
the same
18th.
week as...
like 1 week before Christmas.
Yeah. Oh my God.
His tiny little face would have exploded.
Oh, Charlie, you're so dumb. You're so dumb and so racist. And you have way too much money for how dumb you are.
Well, he's got very rich billionaire donors, unfortunately,
Who are also very dumb.
who probably also own a Supreme Court justice or two.
Oh, okay. I intentionally didn't read those so I could give a live reaction. And my goodness.
Why do these people? Oh, God. But no one's going to care again because everyone who watches Charlie Kirk is also a racist.
Oh, right.
So.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? It's hard to get any word in with this clown.
So for the last 2 weeks, Wisconsin politics was a full buzz, with both the Democratic Party of Wisconsin and the Wisconsin GOP having their state conventions for 2023. Now, usually these state conventions suck. They're full of nonsense, vague, platitude, inflated speeches that you can probably recite from memory, even though you'd probably have never seen one. They're long, they're boring, no one cares.
Sounds like our podcast.
Yeah, pretty much. But one thing they also do is they set the platform for the upcoming election for each party. And with people still somehow talking about how the parties are the same.
The I don't vote because they're both the same
Yep.
crowd.
I thought I wanted to take this opportunity. Let's dive into these platforms and these resolutions that were just voted on 1 and 2 weeks ago. The Democratic Party one was first, and see how exactly these parties differ on their priorities. Are you ready, Jason?
Not really, but something tells me you're going to go ahead anyway.
You bet I am, because we have nothing else on the script. So let's compare these platforms. Now, I'll link both platforms for you so you can check it out yourself.
But you won't.
No, don't do it. It's a complete waste of time, but I'll do it just in case there's like one crazy person out there who wants to. Keep in mind also that the Democratic platform is like about 6 or so pages long, and the Republican platform is like 30 to 40 pages. So we're going to be talking a lot more about the Republican one. And also, yes, I get it. We're a progressive show. I'm going to be biased. I'm probably going to be way more emotionally responsive to the GOP stuff, but wooey. Did I have a weird time going through this whole thing? Let's start with education. Democrats, according to their new platform that they voted on, want to increase public education per pupil spending. And I'm not going to read all of these resolutions because they're all very kind of long-winded. But I just want to show you what the language the Democrats use versus the language Republicans use in their platform resolutions. Quote, whereas a strong public education, yes, they use the term whereas a lot, get used to it. Whereas a strong public education system is one of the factors that has made Wisconsin a strong state with a highly educated workforce. Whereas the revenue limits imposed on school districts in 1994 created permanent inequities in the amount of funding available for each school district. Whereas the current per pupil revenue limit is set at $10,000, and whereas numerous fixes such as sparsity aid and equalization payment have not eliminated the differences in per pupil student funding.
That's what everyone wants to hear about, and sparsity aid and equalization payments.
Riveting stuff, isn't it?
Yes.
Therefore resolved, the minimum per pupil revenue limit should be raised to at least $11,500 and annually adjusted for inflation thereafter. How about that, Jason? Was that exciting?
Oh, yeah, well, you woke me up.
Were you ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. That's the radical left for you, man. Just way out of touch. They want to
Marxists.
They want to raise per pupil spending in our public schools $1,500 more per student and have it keep up with inflation.
Just like Marx wanted to do.
They also want to, and actually this is kind of a good one, disclose taxpayer dollars going to voucher schools. Quote, DPW should demand legislation which would add a single line on property tax bills indicating the amount from the taxpayer school district that are being diverted to private education. Because, as we talked about in our school voucher episode, private schools and school vouchers are just straight up a black hole money pit, and no one knows where the money goes afterwards.
And it increases every year.
Yep.
To no end.
And of course, they support universal school meals because we gotta feed the kids. Now, is that some wholesome grandma shit right there?
It's all very basic. I don't know where the part where they're going to turn all kids gay, though. Where does that?
Surprisingly, it wasn't there.
I see. So they don't tell you about that. They're trying to hide it.
Yes. It's the secret agenda they want you to know about. Yes. So what about the GOP?
Well, if anything, this should be more exciting.
Well, unsurprisingly, they want to expand school voucher programs. Quote, Republican Party of Wisconsin in caucus demands that elected leaders... Demands. The elected leaders cease forcing our students into failing schools and may directly allocate funds to students to cover expenses of the education of the parent's choice, be it private, public, or homeschool.
Yes, let's pay you to homeschool your own child.
Have you seen, my fiance and I just watched Shiny Happy People on Amazon Prime about the Duggar family?
No, I will never watch that.
Oh, it's so good. If any of you have Amazon Prime, you should totally watch it because it just dives right into how crazy the Duggar family was and their whole cult that was behind them, and they had a huge homeschooling aspect of how crappy it was.
Or just steal it. Don't give your money to Bezos.
That's also fine.
Just pirate it.
I'm also fine with that. So that's not surprising, right? That's Republicaning. What else we got? Banning critical race theory. Seriously, we're still on this crap. Now, this one I'm going to read to you because here we go.
At least more exciting.
Quote, whereas critical race theory, an academic discipline rooted in Marxism, falsely posits that the United States is an institutionally racist nation and that racism is ingrained in every aspect of American society.
True.
And whereas proponents of critical race theory believe that the solution to what they determine to be institutional racism in the United States is to dismantle and recreate all American institutions.
Yeah, I'm on board. Let's do this.
Whereas critical race theory's tenets are fundamentally racist in that they suggest that people should be viewed and treated differently based on the color of their skin.
Okay, that's not true, but whatever.
And whereas critical race theory divides Americans and promotes racial tensions and is becoming increasingly prevalent in schools across the country.
Yeah, it's getting increasingly prevalent in school board meetings across the country.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Republican Party of Wisconsin in caucus assembled urges support for banning critical race theory teaching and practice for future educational models in Wisconsin schools.
All of those schools that it's not at all part of, except for higher education, because it's a higher education legal theory.
Which we did a whole episode about this one as well.
And has nothing to do with primary education whatsoever.
So we're still on critical race theory,
Yes.
apparently.
Ban critical race theory. Good start, Republicans. That's their education platform.
So, all right. So, rocky start. Let's see what we can do now. How about banning drag in schools and libraries?
Of course.
I'm going to read this one for you, too, because it's crazy.
And somehow not banning priests.
Whereas the purpose of our society's schools and libraries is to offer them learning opportunities and to teach the basics like reading, writing, math, and sciences to our children to help them become productive members of our society.
Okay, well then how come they don't fund either?
Shut up. Whereas, from the beginning of, this is my favorite one, from the beginning of time, parents alone have chosen what ethics and morals to teach their kids.
Who is writing this?
That's in their platform. Why?
Robin Voss runs a popcorn business.
Whereas the purpose of such readings is to convince small children to accept the behavior of people whose lifestyles are counterintuitive. It's two words in this one. I don't know why. Counterintuitive can be one word. To the morals and ethics of their parents and the majority.
Not true at all.
It's just the majority.
So the purpose of such readings, so the purpose of the Drag Queen Story Hour,
yes,
is to convince small children to accept the behavior of people whose lifestyles are counterintuitive to the morals and ethics of their parents and the majority. I thought, who cares about the majority, right? From the beginning of time, parents alone. But now they're bringing up the majority, which is not even true.
No,
by the way,
not.
You're wrong, and also, why are you fighting against your own argument from the beginning of this same sentence?
And whereas such behavior by these adults is considered grooming behavior.
Why did you come up with this topic this week? You just wanted to make me angry.
I really did. Whereas the way to include the LGBTQ community, we're going to tell them how to get included now, in our society has nothing to do with giving them access to grooming society's children.
Come on. This just makes me want to find Chuck Whitaker's house and egg it.
There's demons in these walls. There's demons in these eggs.
They tell me what to write for the GOP platform.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Republican Party of Wisconsin in caucus assembled demands Wisconsin state legislators and legislative leaders work together to pass legislation to prevent outside people or groups from providing, quote, readers or also drag...
No reading to children.
Or also drag queens whose morals deviate from the public at large. Morals?
Why are you just deciding that?
Dude, just because someone dresses up like a woman for a hobby and as an art form doesn't mean their morals are different. Well, actually, yes, absolutely does, because you guys are just Christian violent prudes, all right? So yes, they deviate from you, at least.
Right, but they're public at large. So they've just decided what the public at large's morality is, and that it doesn't have a space for drag as entertainment and art form.
Yep.
Which is, again, demonstrably not true. Bugs Bunny, motherfucker. I don't want to hear your shit. You're just lies. This is all lies.
Be it further resolved that any publicly funded agency or organization who ignores such legislation does so at the threat of loss of public funding, which means that if schools, even higher education schools, because they're trying to literally defund our public colleges right now, if they do even do something like this, they will be defunded, because nothing says pro-education like defunding schools to get at the drag queens.
Well, to push your political and religious agenda.
Oh, are they the same yet?
Well, I'm at least awake during this one.
Other things they have for education. I'm not going to read all of these, so don't worry. We're going to kind of steamroll through them. Reduce sexualizing kids in public schools, where they accuse public educators of, quote, fostering sexual discourse to kindergarten and 1st through 4th grade, and then calls for legislation to protect students from, quote, preparation of students towards sexuality before the 5th grade.
Well, they said groomer before. Why are they trying to hide it here?
I know. This is such a mess. Oh, my goodness.
It's just a hodgepodge of every culture war topic.
Right. What else we got? We got protecting female sports.
I knew this was coming.
Make sure all athletes conform to their gender assigned at birth. Cool. They also
we have to look at all of their genitals now.
Yes, we do.
Good job. We don't want to groom them or sexualize them, but let me
show me
junk.
your penis now, or is you're not going to race. They also want to train and arm teachers with guns.
Of course they do.
And protect free speech on college campuses unless it's literally trans people or LGBT people, which calls for defunding.
Right. Well, unless free speech includes drag.
And I just want to put this out there. In that same protect free speech part they're calling on the UW system president, which UW means University of Wisconsin Public Colleges system, to appoint a commission to look into the, quote, lack of intellectual and or viewpoint diversity among faculty and administrators. Now, I want to know, what does intellectual diversity mean?
They want
super smart people and then really dumb people.
Well, right, like they want to give Marjorie Taylor Greene something to do after she gets kicked out of office.
We have too many smart people. We need at least 1 or 2 dumb people to just round this all out.
We have a lot of dumb people in the GOP with nowhere to go. So
what's going to happen if that's the case? If the commission finds that, what are we going to do? Do an affirmative action hire? What's happening?
Which will soon probably be outlawed by the Supreme Court. Not looking forward to when that happens.
Okay. Other state issues, because education, I'm not kidding. My plan was to go topic by topic, but like I said, the Republicans had so much crazier things that I couldn't even compare them outside of education. So we're just going to do all other state issues I found were relevant to what we were talking about. Let's start with the Democrats again. They want to repeal the ban on project labor agreements. So like restore collective bargaining. That sounds good to me. They want to democratize artificial intelligence.
So the machines can vote on whether or not to kill the humans.
They want to eliminate the anonymous objection in the Joint Finance Committee, and this is basically, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure many don't, there was a huge forest preservation bill that was put forward, and basically one anonymous person on the Joint Finance Committee, which is the one that basically signs off on all this stuff, just rejected it. No one knows who it was, although we have some good ideas. And that's it. Yep. They get to skirt away
millions of acres of forest was basically sold because of one anonymous objection.
So they want to
can't even be held accountable.
Right. So if they want to say like, okay, if you're going to screw us over like that, you have to at least be known. So what a shocker. Transparency, right? They call for the endorsement of the termination of fossil fuel subsidies. They want to reduce gun violence with extreme risk protection orders or red flag laws. They want to support abortion rights with the Abortion Rights Preservation Act, expand badger care for all Wisconsinites, and eliminate driving suspensions for non-payment of fines and fees. What are your thoughts on all of of those, Jason?
Very boring again.
Okay.
But nothing that you can really object to. Obviously, it is a standard Democratic platform. It's the things that they always say that they are for.
Yep. All right, cool. Let's go to the Republican side. We're going to start with our elections. Number one, they're going to secure our elections. Whereas, we're going back in it. Democrat-controlled federal agencies such as the FBI have colluded with U.S.-based international tech companies to interfere with our elections.
Just conspiracy theories writ large in a party platform.
Whereas managing elections is a state responsibility, not a federal responsibility. And whereas the findings of both the Gableman and Legislative Audit Bureau investigations of the 2020 election have raised serious doubts about the integrity of Wisconsin's elections.
So the same Gableman investigation that had to be stopped by the Republicans because it was so rife with fraud and being sued by everyone and losing all of the court cases and costing millions of dollars.
Yes, that one specifically.
And the guy was so nuts, he actually turned on the Speaker of the state legislature and tried to campaign against him.
There's also the same Gableman that went to a convention by the MyPillow guy.
Yes, who was at the cyber MyPillow guy convention to prove that the election was rigged. And if you could prove that he was wrong, he would give you whatever it was, like $5 million. And someone proved that his data was false, and he had to be ordered by a court to pay.
Yep.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Whereas the Democrat Party has, by the way, they use like Democratic Party, the Democrat Party. They put Democrats without the capitalizations. They put Democrats with cap. They're all over the place. Someone didn't proofread this. That's all I'm going to say. The Democrat Party has been using outside money to administer elections and to engage in ballot harvesting in counties that it controls.
Counties that it controls.
Yep, because we specifically control several different counties.
The GOP in Wisconsin is just a circus. Like, I want to play the Fox in the Head theme through this whole thing.
Right? We're not even done, man. Whereas Wisconsin's most populous Democrat-governed counties and municipalities refuse to enforce election law, leaving their jurisdictions rife with illegal vote harvesting and voter registration fraud. You know, all that fraud that we clearly found in the 2020 election.
Those 9 people in La Crosse that voted with a P.O. box.
Ooh. Whereas counties and municipalities that are unable to control crime from homicide to shoplifting lack both the will and the means to stop illegal vote harvesting. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Republican Party of Wisconsin in caucus assembled, number 1, calls for the Wisconsin legislature to formally censure the federal administration for violating Wisconsin's sovereignty by interfering in its elections.
I don't think they have the power to do that.
I mean, we can censure anyone we want. That doesn't do anything. That guy sucked, and we say it. We doth decree. Number 2 declares that the only way to restore faith in our elections in the face of so many well-financed creative vote harvesting operations is to return to same-day in-person voting, with the only exceptions being absentee ballots issued only for cause.
So get rid of absentee voting.
Keep in mind, this is also the same Republican Party that actively tried to get rid of absentee voting for active military personnel. So, you know, super pro-military. Number 3 calls for the WEC, or the Wisconsin Elections Commission, to acquire those now termed indefinitely confined to be simply use the absentee ballot procedure. I don't even know why they're talking about the WEC, because they're about to talk about them in another point where they're just going to get rid of them.
Right. Well, they've been trying to after creating them in the first place.
Number 4 calls on the state legislature to outlaw outside funding to counties and municipalities for election administration and staffing, and with no Wi-Fi modems or internet capability, or request that voting machines be eliminated and all ballots be counted by hand.
Aren't they the same people that complain that all of the votes all the counting isn't done same day?
Yes.
So no funding.
But the Wi-Fi is going to get our votes.
Right. Like, that's just, again, it's all conspiracy theory. Unfounded, crazy conspiracy theories. That's how they want to govern.
Yes. This is what it is.
Just insanity.
This is what we have to look forward to in Wisconsin. We're not even done. Number 6 calls on municipal clerks to delete voter registrations of all inactive voters every 4 years. And that's the whole voter rolls thing where they try to purge them.
Make it harder to vote.
Yes. Number 7 calls on the state registrar's office to automatically update voter registration rolls whenever it receives death certificates. Number Number 8, calls on county district attorneys who have jurisdiction to prosecute election fraud in adjoining counties. Okay. Number 9, calls on the legislative leadership of the assembly to articulate and implement a plan to use its considerable power, at least they're admitting it now, of the purse to encourage all municipalities to enforce election law.
They do. Show me an example of election law not being enforced.
I would love to see it. Please. Ugh.
And after saying they want all of this stuff to be done by the Wisconsin's Election Commission, who they established.
They literally go on to say, we want to eliminate the Wisconsin's Elections Commission and the Electronic Registration Information Center. And I don't know, they claim that this was just added bureaucracy, which, keep in mind, they put in place. This was the Republicans' idea.
The whole problem was that when it was created, it was a bipartisan.
And they don't like that.
Right. Because they're like, hey, we control the legislature. How come we can't just do whatever we want? Oh, because previously you established the Wisconsin Election Commission, and it's a bipartisan group, and it's evenly split between Democrats and Republicans. No, we want to just do what we want.
Now, this is one of the more heinous ones that I think are actually practical, so let's talk about this one.
Yeah, I've heard of this one. This was getting some news.
The GOP wants to eliminate voting on college campuses, and I'm going to read this one very seriously because I think this is actually a serious thing they're going to try to pull off. Whereas all U.S. citizens, in all caps, who are 18 years of age or older are eligible voters, in all caps, and shall not be denied or abridged the right to vote by the United States or by any state in account of age. It's fine. Whereas, while Congress sets the legal age for voting, state legislators define the parameters for determining residency. And whereas students come to our local communities and stay temporarily during the school year, and students return to their parents' home address during breaks and receive mail at their home addresses, and whereas students who arrive at college campuses in the fall are immediately campaigned by Democrats.
By Democrats. They're the only ones that have political organizations on campus. There's nothing like, say, Turning Point USA or anything like that.
Or literally college Republicans, and are repeatedly told by faculty and other students who they should vote for.
Yes, they're repeatedly told. This is just lies. This is lying over and over and over again and pushing to change laws based on these lies.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll talk about that in a second. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Republican Party of Wisconsin in caucus assembled demands that all elections law be followed and only eligible voters be allowed to vote, and that students shall vote by absentee, which they said they didn't want for anybody just 2 lines earlier, at the polling place assigned to their permanent home address, not a temporary college address. And be it further resolved that all colleges and universities will follow all laws and the strict guidelines as laid out by the Wisconsin State Legislature and show through audits that proper training procedure has been followed.
So changing voting laws.
Literally. So if you guys didn't know what that meant, that basically means Republicans are pissed off that students on college campuses are voting for Democrats. And what they want to do is make sure that college students have a harder time voting. That's all it is. I voted on campus when I was in college, all 4 years.
Because that's where you live.
Because that's where I lived.
Yes.
I'm not going to go all the way freaking home to go vote, especially because election day is what? In the fall. Also, keep in mind also, like when a bunch of these off-year elections and like local elections are taking place, they intentionally moved them to the summer so that college kids couldn't vote as easily. I want to make that very clear as well. But now they're trying to go after college kids again because they know that they vote overwhelmingly for Democrats and not because they get lied to and pushed to by faculty. Young kids just typically vote Democrat because they're in a usually very diverse, very progressive ecosystem. And that's what happens when you're not in a freaking Republican bubble like these people are.
It's all that intellectual non-diversity that they have going on.
Yeah, right. What else they got? They want to craft an amendment to the state's constitution to enshrine medical freedom and the, quote, sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship. It's all about ending vaccine mandates. Obviously, they want to ban all gender-affirming care for minors.
What doctor's going to tell you not to get a vaccination?
I don't know. A Christian one. I don't know.
Not a real one.
Not a doctor. I don't know. For abortion, they want to stop funding for emergency contraception. They want to officially and legally define unborn baby as a legal person from the time of fertilization. And
that's not going to have a lot of unintended consequences.
Well, Well, we saw what happened. Literally, was it in Missouri?
Right, with the death of the worker who was pregnant.
Yep. And they want to make sure that whoever performs an abortion will be convicted with a Class A felony for murder. But unlike the Democratic Party, the GOP resolutions go on to a bunch of federal issues because you know why?
Which they have no control over.
Why freaking not?
Yeah, who cares?
So-
Let's have the Wisconsin state legislature dictate federal policy.
So let's end with the GOP's federal issues. Are you ready for one last dive, Jason?
This is just as logical as everything else, so.
Cool. Immigration, because you know...
So I assume this is dealing exclusively with Canadian immigration, right?
Absolutely not. They demand that the federal government continues construction on the border wall on the Mexico border.
The Wisconsin state legislature.
Yes.
Yeah.
They reject the 14th Amendment interpretation that grants birthright citizenship for children.
Sure. Let's just rewrite the Constitution while we're at it.
Outside of immigration, they do bring up Hunter Biden's laptop. And how the big tech censored the story to help Joe Biden win the 2020 election.
Yep, that's the only reason Joe Biden won.
They also want to formally reject all initiatives to combat misinformation on social media, and they want to protect freedom of speech for conservatives.
They don't really want to combat misinformation on social media. Their entire platform is built on misinformation from social media.
They want to defund hospitals if they don't start prescribing ivermectin again. I wasn't expecting that one.
Yeah. And, I thought we were combating misinformation. Instead, we're spreading more of it.
You know, the pressing issues of the day. Get ivermectin back
right.
for dealing with COVID.
A couple years late on that one.
They want to demand the federal government to reinstate all military service members who were dishonorably discharged for refusing to stay up to date on their vaccines.
Yeah, dictate more to the federal government.
Yep. And also, I mean, this was from the COVID-19 vaccine where the military forces you to get all your vaccines before you ship off.
Tons of them.
And no one cared about it until the COVID-19 vaccine. And finally, they want to defend marriage and the family. And I'm going to read this one in full, and we're going to sail off into the sunset. Whereas independent families with fathers and mothers who marry, give birth, nurture, and teach the next generation are the most important foundation for a stable civil society. And whereas Democrats are attempting to destroy the independent family and are denying the fact that there are biological differences between men and women. Were you ready for that? Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Republican Party of Wisconsin in caucus assembled, number 1, declares that we are the party of family, celebrating the mystery of romance and marriage.
What?
The unique responsibilities of fatherhood and motherhood, the comfort and pain of home and family.
This entire episode has been pain.
The romance.
The mystery.
The mystery of romance.
What the did they just start reading from like a erotic novel?
But Jason,
what the fuck is this?
I'm gonna be honest. I bet you anyway for conservative Christians, romance is a freaking mystery. Because I have no idea how these people would be romantic to each other. Number 2 declares that we oppose all that weakens the family, such as tax systems that encourage people to not marry, social programs that encourage families to break apart or have children out of wedlock, and sex education that dismisses gender as simply an illusion and sex as little more than entertainment.
Whatever. This is fucking nonsense.
Jason is broken.
I've stopped caring at this point. You could just say anything, and it's not going to surprise me.
We're almost there. We're almost done. Number 3.
If you vote Republican, you're a fucking idiot.
Number 3 recognizes that differences between men and women often call for separate treatment for bathrooms and dormitories, where women need to not compete with biological males, for prisons that separate incarcerated men and women, and for a military that does not draft women.
Whatever. I don't care. That's all fine. It's just we define who is a man and a woman differently, right? Like, no one's going to argue with any of this shit It's just, I believe that you can transition from male to female, from man to woman, from woman to man, and the GOP would not. So they're not really addressing that part of it. So all of this is just nonsense, because that's not the issue. The issue is how you're defining, and that's why their whole big thing of, what is a woman? Brr, brr, brr. Because their definitions are different than mine.
We got 3 more left. Number 4, calls our state legislature to criminalize the administration of puberty blockers and opposition hormones by parents, medical staff, or other third parties for the purpose of gender transitioning minor children.
Again, you cannot use puberty blockers after you've gone through puberty. So that would just remove them as a possibility for someone. So you're forcing children who do not identify as their birth gender to go through puberty and have irreversible changes that make them more consistent with the attributes of the gender that they do not identify with. So you're forcing them to go through trauma.
Yes. And 2 things to keep in mind as well. Number 1, I think we talked about this before. Puberty blockers are safe and reversible.
And have been used.
For decades.
And it's not experimental.
Nope.
And have other purposes as well.
And that was my number 2. Number 2 is children get puberty blockers for other reasons than transition. Even today.
Yes, you can go through puberty extremely early for different medical conditions, things like that, where children can start going through puberty at like age 4 or 5. And that's too early. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your mental health. So they get put on puberty blockers to hold off puberty until they're ready.
So I would like to know the plan on how they're going to criminalize puberty blockers for just transition.
Right, how they're going to enforce that.
Right. Number 5, calls on our state legislature to pass laws that enable minor children who have been, quote, transitioned to recover damages against parents, medical staff, or other third parties for 10 years after reaching the age of majority, while allowing for the full recovery of attorney fees where there has been a willful and intentional administration of experimental puberty blockers and apposition?
I don't know.
I copy this verbatim.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say what it is. And apposition hormones upon a minor child.
So this is an attempt to make doctors afraid.
Yes.
To prescribe these because they'll be worried that if anything happens 15 years, 20 years down the line, they could be sued. And it's meant to have a chilling effect on doctors to basically do what they're trying to do, stop people from getting the care that they want and need.
And I want to go back. So how is this helping the family again? This was under the helping the family section. You're attacking doctors in the helping the family
parents.
Section. And parents. You're intentionally creating more suffering for the families in your helping the family section. Like Jason said, if you vote Republican, you're just a freaking moron, man.
Yeah, if you, I don't know who is still listening to this, to be perfectly honest, but if you are in the state of Wisconsin and you somehow listen to this whole thing and you're like, yeah, those sound like reasonable people that I could trust and I can support that. What is wrong with you? Let me know. Write in the thinkpropod@gmail.com.
Yep.
Let us know. I want to hear from you. Explain
how this is acceptable
and what you find
normal.
What you find that you can support out of this. Like why is this something that you are interested in? Explain yourself.
Let's finish this out. We got one more. Number 6, opposes any attempts by professional organizations to force physicians to support and will seek to curb the use of cross-sex hormones, puberty blockers, and gender transition surgeries in pediatric patients, and it will advocate for counseling as the most appropriate treatment for gender uncertain youth. Because weirdly enough, they do fully endorse in this as well, psychological treatment for gender dysphoria.
Right, just pray the gay way.
Right.
And I want to remind everyone, once again, this is in Wisconsin. We are not actually in Kentucky or Alabama or Louisiana or Mississippi or Georgia. This is one of the most northern states, which is majority Democrat.
Yep.
And has a Democratic governor.
Yep.
A Democratic senator.
Yep. Should have 2 Democratic senators, to be perfectly
except
honest.
for racism. And this is the platform of the Republican Party. And they're constantly screaming throughout this whole thing that they're the majority.
And they're not.
This is lunacy. This is organized organized insanity. And it's just a bunch of conspiracy theories and nonsense and all of the things that we constantly talk about as being just obviously ridiculous. It's a lot of things we've had in the Foxed in the Head segment. This
a lot
is
of them.
Incredibly extreme. Meanwhile, they call the Democrats, who we just read, they're like sleep-inducing, very standard, not screaming about any culture war, axe-grinding nonsense platform, and they call them the extremists and the Marxists. Meanwhile, they're pushing the most extreme, something that you would maybe see in Florida and not be surprised.
Oh, I didn't put this in here, but they did actually praise DeSantis's education plan in Florida.
And that's what we're getting in the state of, again, Wisconsin. And unfortunately, not enough people pay attention to this stuff. You have, I would say, at least half of the population of the state that'll never know any of this and never care. And like you said, they'll be the ones telling you, I don't vote. They're both the same. Democrats and Republicans, they're both crazy. I don't listen to that. I don't pay attention to that.
Well, and you hear influencers doing the same crap too. Like Joe Rogan does this crap all the time. He's like, well, the left lost its mind, the right lost its mind. No, you see what's happening right now. And usually when they try to say like the left lost its mind, they always go to, because there are always crazy people in every camp, right? I'll make that very clear. The left has crazy people, but they'll go to like some random person on college campuses who doesn't know anything about anything, or they'll talk to some rando on some random like advocacy group that doesn't know anything about anything. There are a dime a dozen. That happens all over the place. Look at the people who are in power. And we just did that right now. These are the people that are in power. These are the people that make up our legislatures. These are the people who will be flooding you with ads come 2024. They have the money. Both sides, they have the money.
Well, the biggest issue in the state of Wisconsin, or why the state of Wisconsin has been a testbed for the most extreme Republican ideas, starting with gerrymandering, is because two of the richest citizens in the state of Wisconsin, the Ulines and the Menards, are crazy Republican extremists and are billionaires and donate tons of money to the Republican Party in Wisconsin and are able to get all of these radical candidates to run and in these positions of power.
Yep.
Whereas, as you well know, I'm sure, the Democratic Party in Wisconsin is constantly begging for money, and we can only get funding when we have like these big national races. But your everyday school board, local state legislator is not getting any support from these outside groups that will come in and support a Janet Protasewicz.
Right.
Whereas all of the lunatic Republicans are constantly getting that support from these families that are in the state of Wisconsin and have huge wallets.
So there you go. If someone ever tries to tell you again, both parties are just the same, I don't care, send them this episode. And if anything, just make them listen to us as a punishment for being stupid in the first place.
And we will be off next week, as it is the 4th of July, which we're actually celebrating. Sorry, Charlie Kirk.
Oh, you took my joke away.
And I think we're both going to a wedding as well.
Woo!
Congratulations, Grace.
Yay. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively. And I seriously, their website's down. I can't verify this.
That's fine.
Their website's down.
Well,
also, who names a company with gate at the end?
Yeah. Well.
Any day. Like, why would you do that? When I first learned about this and I saw like hashtag OceanGate, I'm like, oh great, what stupid conspiracy thing is happening now?
It's the orcas.
I thought that's what it was at first.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what idiot would call their company OceanGate? Oh my god.
It's your gate to the ocean and a tiny little window.
So is a boat. Ugh.
Support pro-Republica.
Pro-Republica.
Hubba bubba. Chew hubba bubba.
Oh, that can't be our message. Don't chew hubba. It's bad. Don't chew hubba.
It's good for like 5 seconds.
Right, exactly. That's why it's bad.